Good morning, everybody. It is early morning for me. Any time Amanda and I get together, one of us is hitting the alcohol and the other is hitting the Cheerios. So today Amanda gets to do the fun end of that one. So thank you all for joining. My name's Stuart Easton. I'm one of the founders here at Transparent Choice. And as you probably know, if you're joining us, we make and sell project prioritization software. And Amanda is joining us. Do you want to give a quick intro as to who you are, Amanda, and then we'll kind of say why we're doing this session?
Yeah, hi team, Amanda Oakenfull. I'm currently a delivery executive at IBM and have been in the delivery, I call it the delivery industry, as opposed to sort of project management. So it encompasses everything PPM-esque. Have been in this industry for over about 25 years now and have in our travels gotten to know Stuart quite well. Absolutely love the Transparent Choice technologies that are on offer, and that's how we sort of met and have been having fun ever since.
Yeah, actually, I think talking of that, we were just talking about social media and the blessing and the curse that comes with it. But that's actually how we met. I posted a blog that said the title is something along the lines of, why do we need we don't need PMOs. PMOs are rubbish, and it was an ironic title, right? The article itself said the exact opposite, but of course Amanda didn't read the article. She just responded to the headline and started flaming me, and I kind of went, oh, I like this lady, she's got spirit. So here we are a couple of years later, and today what we're going to be talking about is pet projects. And this really we were on a panel together the other week, and it sort of spun out from that conversation where, just tangentially we touched on this pet project thing, and realized that not enough people. Everybody talks about pet projects. They talk about strategic alignment, but most people kind of miss how incredibly important pet projects are, or in fact the elimination of pet projects is.
They're emotional.
Yeah, and how emotional they are. And so that's what we want to tackle today. We obviously do project prioritization. We're working with organizations around the world on their portfolios, and pet projects are everywhere. They have all kinds of different shapes and colors. Amanda's been doing this for years and has seen more than one or two over those. Yeah, seen more than one or two over the years. And so it seemed like a good opportunity really for me to interview Amanda. This is nominally an interview. Actually, it's going to be a couple of friends chatting over a wine and a bowl of Cheerios about the whole idea of what is a pet project, where do they come from, why do they exist, how are we going to get rid of them? What impact do they have, that kind of thing. So that's today's topic, and we'll probably try and wrap it up in sort of half an hour or so, because if you're in Europe, you've got a busy day to get on with, and if you're in Asia, you've got to get home. And, yeah, exactly. And if you're in America, you're in bed. So congratulations. Yeah. So Amanda, let's kick it off with a definition. How do you define a pet project?
Oh, that's pretty easy. It's any project you shouldn't be doing. But when asked, it's don't do all those projects, but I really want to keep this one. Predominantly pet projects. They can be a very aligned to the strategy. They can be actually aligned to what the business is doing, and they're just emotionally tied. You might have an executive emotionally tied to that pet that he wants to keep burning. But the problem is the ones that aren't aligned, the ones that we like to start up because it's new and it's shiny, the ones that are nice and enjoyable, but potentially have nothing to do with where the business is going. I think the one that comes to mind that was absolutely destructive was in a utilities company, whereby they had over 250 valves that they had to service. If they serviced one, if they went through the drawings one a day of only 220 work days, it would take them a full year just to review the plans of each valve, not even to do the services. So rather than focusing on fixing that issue in the business, I actually found a pet project for an automated water vehicle, because they were looking at automated water vehicles.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we are hemorrhaging money. So, and for the life, you get these impassioned, absolutely impassioned validations about why it's really important to be on the front of technology, to be at the cutting edge, so you're ahead of the market. I'm like, well, you won't get ahead of the market because you're going to die in the next 2 years. So who cares if you're ahead of the market in 20 years, or if you're looking at over the horizon technology development? You're not going to be there. Your business will be dead in the water. So it's those pet projects, those ones that they're nice and shiny and they're enjoyable and they're fun. It's like when the iPhone got released. Oh, everyone has to go get one of them because it's really interesting. And you can have such amazing sponsorship for some of these pet projects. It's enjoyable. They're fun, like a sports car.
There's a load in there to unpack. So I'm going to start with the question: where do these projects come from? Do you think? Why are they so emotional?
I was going to be a bit facetious and just go a conference. Something someone read in the latest management magazine. Industry forums where someone gets a great idea. They can come from a long shower where someone's had too much time to think. Those places where your brain, really interesting articles, and they're new. It's fascinating. It's the human mind wants to be curious, and they are fabulous places to explore and be curious and build and create. But for the utilities example, when you're in that business and you've got a lot of cleanup to do, there's a lot of hard work and hard slog, and it's not interesting, and it's a bit boring, and it's going to be dull, and it might have to be dull for 5 years to get that business to where you need it to be. I mean, this particular business was one that they had no idea what assets they had. They were doing things like literally finding buildings they never knew they existed. Buildings. Like this is, while we're on there, we just found a building last week. Didn't know that was there. I mean, it's just, you drove past it. No one got the address right. Did you check the junk mail? There's all those sorts of things are boring and mundane. So it's those pet projects that you uncover. And
it's so interestingly, I mean, that's you said conferences and things like that. I have a friend who used to be a government minister, and so we were talking about pet projects, and he was telling me about several really big multi-billion-dollar government. These are big government infrastructure projects. Things like building new train lines and things like that. And he was kind of saying how when he was a minister, he was digging into those to try and find out where they came from. And fundamentally, there was all this wonderful smokescreen of logic built around them. Why this was right, why this was important.
I love the business case.
Yes, but fundamentally, it came down to the fact that, well, Henny's online, so it came down to the fact that the Dutch are building one, so we should have one that's bigger. Right, and that was it. That was fundamentally the start of the project. Was this idea that the Dutch have got one, we've got a bigger one.
Yeah, the neighbours have got a new car. Gosh, got to go out get a new car.
Yeah.
Ours has got to be a 6-seater with a bigger horn.
Exactly that, and at that point, I mean, there's a serious point here actually, which is that. Once that project has got going, right, and you ask people why are we doing it, they're going to give you some really good logic for it. And
you can build a business case about this, and the business cases are fascinating. I'm always really quite interested in reading them, because as a career consultant, I'm pretty good at writing the business cases as well. And you can wrap a number of reasonings and logic around that sales sheet.
Absolutely.
It's a talent that I both love and hate, but you can very easily do that and justify your pet project. But is it right for the business? That's the biggest question.
And that is the big question. So that's an interesting question, because very often, so humans are actually really bad at making decisions, and figuring out whether or not something really does contribute to the business depends on who you are, when you're asked, what mood you're in, what you had for breakfast, and what journey you had through life, and a million other things. So one of the interesting things that came from your first comment was, some projects are aligned, some pet projects are aligned. The danger is the ones that aren't aligned. And so my question to you is, says who? Because to that executive whose pet project it is,
yep,
it must be aligned by definition.
But if you consider a company as an organic entity in its own right, it says the company, not says the CEO, not says the chief operating officer, not says the PMO manager, says the company. And I think that's missed. The company in itself is its own entity. It's people come and go, but that business lives and breathes. So it's not about personal perspective. It is about the perspective of the business. And I think that is actually lost on quite a few people in decision-making roles, is to actually have that fiduciary, I guess, perspective of the business, and it actually be the right decision for the business, not the right decision because I want to go out and be on an automated water vehicle, and how cool would it be to test that for about, I'm with you. If someone put that up as a business, I'm there, I'll jump in, not a problem. But is it right for the business? So you've got to question those governance roles, and is that person in that decision-making entity actually making a decision because they want to have a bit of fun on the testing regime when we go into UAT to go out on that water vehicle? Am I making that decision because I think it's going to be awesome, or am I making that decision as an executive because it is in the best interest of this business? And that can really decide the difference. And so pet projects for me, when I actually turn up and unfold a business and say, hey, what have you got in that portfolio? Let's have a look. Oh, look at all these crazy little fun Internet of Things. Fascinating. Why are we on Internet of Things? Going back to that first example, when we can't get our valves correct, for example.
Right.
So it does show, it's actually a little indicator in the maturity or otherwise immaturity of the governance that you actually have in that business.
So that's a great point. I want to just share this. As you know, Rebecca, I read all kinds of rubbish. And one of the things that I was reading last night, as it happens, when I should have been going to bed, was this article. So it's an interview with the CEO of Insurance Australia Group, IAG. Mm-hmm. So you probably know them. For those non-Australians out there, I think they're the biggest insurer in Australia.
One of you.
And so this piece really ties into what you just said. So he talks about this idea of a purpose-led organization, and how that purpose of the organization, the strategy, the direction, the intent of the business needs to be right in the heart of all the decision making. Mm-hmm. And this is, I highlighted this because this is what our business is. It's helping organizations do that. Because one of the challenges, and I think one of the root causes of pet projects is that, if you've got 5 top level C-suite executives, they may go to work in the same building every morning, but they effectively go to work for 5 different companies. Mm-hmm. The sales guy goes to work for the sales company, and the manufacturing guy works for the manufacturing company, and they don't really understand each other usually. And so there may be something that within manufacturing is really big and important and exciting that the rest of the leadership team really doesn't care about, right? And so pet projects can be, you know, if you sit in your silo and just think about your silo, they can be quite legitimate projects actually, but in the context of the whole organization, they can be pet projects. So you know, I guess one of the key messages is that, you know, to even be able to talk about what a pet project is, you need to have some consensus at the leadership level about what your purpose is, what your direction, what your strategic goals are. And you know, that's kind of the first step. So why does it matter, do you think? I mean, you've seen lots of these things over the years, and you know, there was a moment the other week when we were talking about this, and you just kind of went, ah, right?
Yeah.
So it was this idea, you know, why does it matter?
Okay, so you see a lot of people come in and they try to mature their program before they've weeded out pet projects and troublesome areas. So before, if you come in without cleaning up your portfolio, without doing your prioritization work, and you let's say you've come across and you're going to, you know, empower a PMO, you're going to grow your delivery capability, you're going to throw every P3, M3 book at it, you've got PMI coming in, let's throw some PMBOK, let's get some methodologies over there, and we're going to really ramp this up. Can you imagine what you're actually doing is, if that, for example, that pet project, it takes away, it's like it's a mosquito bite. It's a parasite on the actual ability to access the costs involved. It will grow as that parasite as much as your portfolio will grow. So if you start speeding up your methodologies and you're starting to grow that maturity, it's somewhat cancerous. It will take away your costings and your available resourcing, and you're actually almost increasing that hemorrhaging capability because of these pet projects were not weeded out prior to doing that. Does this make sense? So it is fascinating when you watch someone, oh, yep, we're onto it. You know, we've got maturity growth. We're really going to sort these projects out. And I'm like, can you just stop? Because if you don't clean up those little cancerous nodules that you've got in your portfolio and you start putting your foot on the accelerator, you will be growing that sort of, yeah, I can only say it's more like a cancerous area of your portfolio at the same rate as you are growing the good growth aspects. And that will eat away at your resources. You'll get confused. You know, why are we still not, why am I getting an increase in maturity, but I'm not seeing it come, you know, manifesting itself in revenue. I'm not seeing these outcomes that we're actually wanting out of the business, that we've put these great beneficial targets on because we've grown project management maturity, and we're actually, you know, really working hard at getting some solid resourcing in there. And you turn around and say, because like I said back in that first example, well, I had an engineering department that could not maintain their prime asset because everybody was throwing resources at something really shiny. And so I had an engineering department out saying, we can't even maintain them. We can barely in 1 year just review the design documents. Forget maintenance. So we will actually have a catastrophic issue due to lack of maintenance that will bring this entire place undone, because everybody's out having a barbecue, watching a little water machine go round. I said that's how bad it can get.
And it's a good point, because actually Jim Smith's put a comment out there, and he says that, you know, there's only one checkbook, right? And there's only one set of resources, and Jim, you're absolutely right. And you know, I spoke to Jim a few weeks ago actually, and you know, he goes on to say that, you know, if executives don't have to compete with their peers for project funding, then you're going to have 1 million pet projects, right? And that competition is the interesting thing. You know, I mean, that's what Transparent Choice as a software vendor exists to support, is to structure that so that it doesn't become a political competition, rather it becomes a rational alignment
Or
process.
the
But
executive that can bang the desk the hardest.
right,
All those characters that we see in our everyday.
absolutely. Well, and it can be fairly catastrophic. You know, so the general statistics, by the way, are that. So this is PMI data from the Pulse report, and so in a typical portfolio, 20% of the projects will be so badly aligned with strategy that they should be stopped tomorrow. Right? That's a pretty good definition of waste. And now some of those will be in there because people just, you know, they were responding to customer pressure or something. But some of those will be really big honking pet projects. And we had a customer a couple of years ago in Australia, and it was a government department, and the head of the department, or the minister, had a couple of projects that he'd been defending for 3 years. You know, everybody else was kind of going, but they're pet projects, right? They're pet projects, kill them. And he defended them for 3 years, and the knock-on effect of that, you know, they were consuming about 20% of the organization's delivery resources. And at the same time, there were projects that were mission critical, right? Important to delivering the mission of the organization, that weren't getting done, that were being starved of resources, that were falling behind because the resources were being put into into these pet projects. And you know, so it was a very joyous day when there's a happy ending when they went through the process, and the guy saw his projects, and it was really clear in the analytics that they were in fact pet projects, and he killed his own projects. Right? No politics, no fuss. Hey, wow! I didn't realize that this was the impact it was having. Well, that doesn't make sense, does it? Let's move on. Right? So it's really interesting that for all the emotion that's invested in them, when you actually help people figure out what is the purpose of the organization, what's the strategy, it then becomes pretty easy to start killing, euthanizing some of these pet projects.
And I think people forget that you hear a lot of the team still holding strong to the project because they're concerned. Human nature is not to change. We actually don't embrace change well, but often, like you said, it's just redirecting that talent. So there's a lot of resistance to actually putting your hand up and going, we kind of know we're on a pet project, because they're worried they'll lose their roles. But to understand that within a business, you will just be redirected into something more beneficial where you've got longevity, that can suppress those fighting, they'll hang on to it just because it's their day-to-day and they're enjoying their team. Well, let's do something more beneficial.
So when you're in that position, how do you, and again, you've done this many, many times, so how do you have that conversation?
With a mild sense of humor. If anyone's ever known me, you just have to say it. You just have to put, it's lovely to see, well, it's not lovely to see, it's somewhat fascinating. I find it interesting to see executives get together in a boardroom or have a meeting, and there's a massive elephant in the corner. And they're like, please excuse the elephant. We're not going to talk about that. Now, I've always got to say, you just have to grab hold of that elephant and shove it in the middle of the table. I'll put my hand down and say, do you realize that after we look at your portfolio, that you've got work that you are investing money in to no end, while aspects of your portfolio are so risky that you are a hair's breadth from a catastrophic incident. And that will take out not only the executive, it'll probably affect the board. Because in some cases in my career, I've seen borderline, it's skimming past negligence only because of the absolute ability to be unaware, which in itself is not good. So you have to call it out. You would be remiss not to say.
Right. So that's really important. I want to bring us back to the title of this webinar: Do pet projects kill a business? Right.
Yeah.
So So the way, let's play out what you just said. So I stick in a pet project and I defend my pet project because it's cool and funky.
Yep.
And that draws resources away from other projects. And within there is a ticking time bomb. And when that bomb goes off, it absolutely can blow away a part or even the whole business. Yes, absolutely. And that really is the message. Pet projects, pets aren't cute. I'm sorry, they're not. They're gremlins. You feed them, and if you feed them after midnight, you're in big trouble. Yeah. And I actually watched that film the other week for the first time. In fact, with my
really first time.
Yeah, can you believe that? I managed to get to this to 51 years old without watching Gremlins. There you go. But they are gremlins. You feed them after midnight and they go crazy. And the thing to me that is really clear, right? The message and the elephant in the room is that when pet projects are prevalent, right? When that's business as usual, that tells me that you used the phrase fiduciary responsibility earlier. That means that the leadership of your organization has a legal binding responsibility, right? Lots of people don't understand what that phrase means. It means you have a legal binding responsibility to deploy resources effectively, efficiently, and safely, right? So most people think it's just a financial, and I guess that's where it started. But when you're talking about board governance, it's all of those things, and pet projects can massively increase the risk within your business and within that portfolio. So there is a legal fiduciary responsibility to do this properly. And if you are so when you're doing accounting as a director of a company, right? Again, you have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the reporting is good, and there are accepted, proven ways of doing that work, right? And if you don't follow those rules, you can go to jail, right? And I think it should be the same for portfolio governance, right? You're deploying the organization's resources. This is one of the most important decisions. I'm privy to a little piece of research that it was research done in a large consulting company. I can't share it with the world, but it was looking at kind of what do CEOs think are the most important, top 10 high impact decisions that are made every year. And this whole thing about aligning activity with strategy, selecting the right portfolio and allocating capital, and there's one other, I forget what it was, but there were 3 out of the top 10 that were basically all the same decision. It was the same portfolio governance, what's in, what's out decision. So 3 out of the top 10 decisions that your CEO cares about are about selecting what portfolio projects you do as an organization. So this stuff is huge, but most organizations don't really do anything with it, right? They just from fairy tales to solve the problem. So do you have any thoughts on how people should think about that or address that?
Be aware of it is the first step. I've spoken to so many people in the business who look, oh, it's not my bother. It's not. I just get told to do as I'm told, which I find quite fascinating, because often the people who have visibility of the pet projects may not be at the governance level where the decision is being made, and are heavily reliant on the people sort of who can see pet projects popping up to actually say something. So it's to be aware of it and have a voice.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd layer onto that to have a formal process for alignment. Your executives aligned in the first place on what they're trying to achieve, and then making sure that you have a formal mechanism that aligns your projects with that strategy.
So many times pet projects can sneak around the little decision-making processes if they try to.
They
Because
can.
you don't want the people to say no. You want your pet project to go ahead. So make sure you've got a really solid decision-making process and governance process in place, and accountability is addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and accountability is really key. You know, I mean, these things are all wrapped up. You know, benefits realization. If you have a benefits realization culture, right? And I don't mean that big bureaucratic organization that does all this craziness, but I mean, if you have a culture at the end of a project, looking back and saying, did we actually achieve what we said we were going to achieve? Actually, Jim Smith, who asked that question earlier, yeah, in that conversation, one of the things he did, and I think, well, so one of the things that he did was he had a culture of checking in through the project and basically saying, are you going to deliver the business benefit? And made the PM and the executive absolutely responsible for delivering that business benefit. And this is before people had PPM, before people had big benefits realization. All you got to do is talk to people, right? You got to, you know, have a conversation, a grown-up conversation, make sure that they understand they are actually accountable for the business result, and then ask them if they're going to get there. And
yeah,
you know,
I actually tie business benefits back to marketing, because in the end, that's where it really goes. Have you gained a business benefit? It's a really good marketing tool.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely. You mean for the PMO and for the organization more generally?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit out there. There's not a lot we disagree on, but I'm not a strong advocate for business to benefit management outcomes. I think I've had a number of stand-up just arguments with colleagues because if I say it out loud, it can, if you're in government, you don't want to be on the front page of the local newspaper or regional newspaper. If you are in private industry, you do not want to affect your share price. So what is the risk? And if there is any risk, if there is a 1% risk of not hitting your benefit, that can really impact your business from either a shareholder perspective, or you want a rogue journalist who wants to upset the government. So a lot of the time you find the reasoning that benefits management, those go very quiet and it is not reported because people don't want access to freedom of information. Because what is the chance? Let's say even if there's a 1% chance that you don't make that benefit, you do not want that hitting a public arena. So a lot of the time what I say is you may not be able to report against your business benefit, but it doesn't stop you putting a KPI in that you can feed to the marketing department. It still comes out at the same principle. You can still measure it and manage it, but it has a different twist.
And to be clear, when I say benefits realization, I don't necessarily mean that full benefits
the formal stuff
framework. What I really mean is being accountable for the result. And actually, you know, I love this idea of transparency because, you know, I really wish government organizations, instead of pretending that you can be perfect and that nothing ever goes wrong, I wish they would just have a grown-up conversation with us and say, do you know what? We think we can pull this off, but there is a chance that it'll go wrong. And these are where the risks are, and this is how we're going to manage them.
This is my parachute.
Well, yeah, but you know, let's be honest. Let's not pretend that projects are risk-free, because they're not. What matters is, are you facing those risks and managing them and addressing them? You know, and the dependencies between different phases of the project and external suppliers. Was I listening the other week? I think.
Yeah, I was so there. I was about to say, don't you manage in risk? We had this talk.
Yeah, we did. But you know, I think it's all related, because if you're focusing on the benefit in the real sense, right, then you're going to realize that this pet project isn't necessarily going to deliver a benefit that anybody else cares about.
Yep.
And so there really is a closed loop here. It's one holistic picture.
Do you know, I've actually got a PMO manager at the moment, so in the detail that they're actually coming out to build components of a build. And while I'm looking at these people, they're staring at this minute deliverable within a project, right? To the point that, remember we go on about don't boil the frog, don't have incremental change so small that you can never notice that change and you end up in the wrong direction. They are looking at the incremental change so small and so focused that they're actually losing the fact of what they were originally here to look at in the first place.
Yeah.
It's really quite fascinating to watch people still today, after we've been talking about this for decades, still making those same mistakes, still managing in risk and not dependency, still doing all those things. And it all rolls up, because if it's that attitude, if you're right down in the rabbit warren and you're looking at whether a component of a configuration is actually being developed in the right manner, how the heck are you pulling yourself out to there to check if that project is actually worth doing?
Yeah.
It's quite fascinating. So from a governance perspective, the people in that particular one is an enterprise PMO manager is so fascinated by the facets of what we're doing that they've lost perspective.
Yeah.
It's
right. Jim's weighing in with one more little bombshell that I know you'll want to respond to, but unfortunately we're pretty much out of time. So Jim, I love the comment. I don't necessarily agree with it 100%. Maybe we can pick that up when we get together in a couple of weeks. But
terrific
for that comment. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank Amanda for fitting us in at the end of her day. Everybody for getting up nice and early. And I hope to see you all again soon. If you are on our mailing list, you will be receiving in the next few days invitations to a couple more webinars that we're doing over the next few weeks. And just a reminder that both Amanda and I are speaking at the PMO Impact Summit, which is an online summit. It's a free summit. A few thousand people attend it every year now. So Amanda and I will be there speaking. Go watch those. I'm talking about strategic alignment. Amanda, what are you talking about? What's your talk?
I knew you'd say that, and do you know what?
You can't remember, can you?
No, I can't. I think we actually recorded them. I think I was the first cab up the rank, and I think it was May.
Yeah.
So it has been a few months, so I should probably dust up.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm getting mixed up from the year prior, so I won't say, because I think I might have got them around the wrong way.
Fantastic. Well, it's another good event, and so if you've enjoyed this morning, go check out Amanda and me and the PMO Impact Summit. And we're both all over the place. You can't get rid of us, I'm afraid. So thank you all for joining, and I look forward to doing this again soon.
We'll see you soon.
You got it. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody. Thanks Ignatia for the comment. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.